to be here in Fells Point, where I've spent a big part of my life, and to be joined by my colleague in the Senate, Senator Ben Cardin. This is the neighborhood where I've spent most of my life, where I've learned the values that have guided my life, and where important things have happened here. We're right in the neighborhood and exactly in the path of the expressway that I got into politics challenging. Growing up here in East Baltimore was a real community. It's been an urban village. People lived, worked, and shopped and worshiped all here. But you know, it's not so much what we did, but it's about what we believed. Here I learned the values from my family, my mother and father, from the nuns and priests who taught me, from the people in the neighborhood themselves, neighbor always helping neighbor, and that we were in this together. My great-grandmother landed here just a few blocks away with little money in her pocket but big dreams in her heart. I got the chance to share in those dreams. We learned about patriotism, neighbor helping neighbor, that we were all in this together. And my mother and father had a little neighborhood grocery store, and every day my mother and father would walk across the street, open up those stores and say, "Good morning, can I help you?" And that's the way I was raised, this whole sense of service. And even today, as I go down to Washington, commuting from Baltimore, looking at the Capitol, I ask myself, "Good morning, how can I help you?" So service for me is about solving problems, helping my constituents, making sure that they not only get by, but that they get ahead, and never, ever putting their needs on a back burner. Now, in 2016, my re-election would be on the horizon. I have thought long and hard about the next 2 years. And I had to ask myself this question: who am I campaigning for? Am I campaigning for me, or am I campaigning for my constituents? I had to decide how I would spend my time, fighting for my job or fighting for their job. Do I spend my time raising money, or do I spend my time raising hell? Do I focus on my election, or do I focus on the next generation? Do I spend my time promising what I would do, or do I do it now and do it the way I like to do? So as I thought about who am I campaigning for, it really became clear that I want to campaign for the people. I want to campaign for the people of Maryland. I want to make sure they have a future, that they have a job, that they have promise and opportunity. So I'm here today in Fells Point to announce that I will not be seeking a 6th term in the United States Senate. This has been a hard decision to make. I have served in the Senate for a while, and at the conclusion of this term, I will have served over 30 years. That's hard to believe. And I want the people of Maryland to know there's nothing gloomy about this announcement. There's no health problem. I'm not frustrated with the Senate. The Senate will always be what the Senate is. But what I have decided that the best thing that I want to do is, where do I spend my time? I want to give 120% of my time focused on my constituents, because it's never been about me. It's always been about them. And I'm going to spend the next 2 years focusing on how I can help Maryland, how I can help the nation, focusing on the middle class. My agenda will be, how can I give the middle class, both here in this state and around the country, a raise? I've yet to finish the job I started with Lilly Ledbetter, to make sure women do get equal pay and for equal work, and are not harassed or punished for even fighting for it. I want to make sure that when they revisit the tax code, that I give targeted tax breaks. While others want to have tax breaks to send jobs overseas, I want to have tax breaks to send kids to college. When others are looking for big deductions for big corporations, I want to make sure we raise the child care deduction to $6,000 a year, to have a new caregiver tax break to help those who are taking care of someone with a serious illness or those who are taking care of someone with Alzheimer's, like that took the life of my father. And for our young people, really to focus on the next 2 years to truly make college more affordable through a variety of programs. I'll be introducing legislation to do that and to make sure our veterans, we keep our promises, and for our seniors, honor thy father and their mother is not only a great commandment to live by, but we need to make sure we keep that safety net. So to all the people of Maryland and even those around the country who are watching or listening now, remember, for the next 2 years, I will be here, working the way I do, 100%, fighting the way I do, being strong in principle, but trying to build those bipartisan coalitions. And when this term is done, I will know that I have given it my very best shot. And I'm going to thank the people of Maryland for the trust that they've given me. I'm going to thank Senator Cardin and for being the best partner, and Senator Sarbanes that you could have, for a great staff that I know will be answering the phones to say, what the hell did she just do? And the answer is, I'm just creating an opportunity to make sure I give Maryland all that I've got so that the people I represent have a shot at a better and more prosperous way ahead. So thank you very much, and that concludes my announcement. But though I'm turning a new page, make no mistake, we're not writing the last chapter. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take a few of them. But could you identify yourself?
Sure, Senator. Tom Fitzgerald from Channel 5 in Washington. As you make this announcement, clearly, both as a political force and as a woman, you've made history in the U.S. Senate. Where you stand today, could you look back on where you started in the U.S. Senate and tell us what you see now that you're going to leave in your wake?
Well, what I've seen is that, first of all, the Senate is a dynamic place. When I came to the Senate, I was the only Democratic woman. I was the first elected in her own right. But I said, I'm going to do, though I was the first, I didn't want to be the only. And I am so excited that there are now 20 women in the United States Senate, 16 Democrats and 5 Republicans, and we work hands across the aisle. And I look forward to standing with them on Wednesday, where we're going to be taking on, as a group, the whole issue of human trafficking. The other thing that I saw is the whole new opportunities for our economy. When I started out, there was no fields like biotech, like cyber tech, but Maryland has the innovation economy. What we have here is great federal labs like the NIH, and we have Johns Hopkins and the University of Maryland coming up with the new ideas for the new products, for the new jobs. 3D used to be a gimmick that you would go to watch a movie. Now it's doing printing that could revolutionize manufacturing. We might not have the old Bethlehem steel, but we will be people of steel to make sure we have the jobs for the future. So I saw changes, but change is good, and change is inevitable.
Senator John Fritzie, from your side, you mentioned kind of grooming the up-and-comers. There are a lot in the state who might be interested in running for this seat. Is there anybody in mind that you think would be good for this job?
Maryland has a lot of talent. And they'll be telling you about it within the next 10 minutes. So, I'll leave them to get it out there. I, of course, will be supporting the Democratic nominee. The primary is April 2016, and that's what I had to face, the reality of a clock. That's why I've made this decision now. So.
Senator Pat Moore with WJA.
Yes, Pat.
We're sad to see you go, of course. I'm asking you what you want to say specifically to the people who have been so loyal to you over the years as to what you'll be doing now so that they don't think that they're not going to see you again.
Well, first of all, I have 2 years in my term. My term does not expire until until December 2016. So I'm going to be around. I'm Senator Barb, and this is what I'm exactly said in my announcement. where do I spend my time the next 2 years? Is it about me and getting reelected, or is it about them and their future? And as I crisscross Maryland, what I see now is that people spend a lot of time just getting by. I want to work to have the public policies to make sure they and their families get ahead.
Last question.
Yes.
Catherine Cairns from Fox 45. What would you say, as you look back on that 30 years you've already done, your proudest moment, your best accomplishment, what you feel is close to your heart that you can say, yeah, I'm leaving my legacy, that's what I've done so far?
Well, for me, it's been no job too big or too small. So whether I met with a family at a round table in Anne Arundel County discussing special needs children, and out of that listening to a mother where we came up with the Roses Law, where we changed the definition and got rid of the stigmatized word of retarded to intellectual disabilities, was a proud accomplishment. My best ideas have come from the people, but taking that idea and then going to Washington to see what can we do for all special needs children. To be out listening to our firefighters, our volunteer firefighters, and seeing that a new fire engine cost $1 million, that equipment to protect them cost over $1,000. You can't do that on tip jars, fish fries, and pancake breakfasts. There's not enough crab cakes in the world or in Hagerstown to fund that. So I worked with a Republican and with Steny Hoyer and others in the House, a fire grant program. Right now in Maryland, firefighters have more equipment that they need to protect us, and we protected them. But that became a national program. So for me, it's not any one accomplishment. It's been the accomplishments and the joy of listening to the people, knowing what their needs are, responding to that need, and trying to turn it into national policy.
One quick follow-up question. What do you plan to do in 2 years when you do retire? Go crabbing? What? What are your plans for retirement?
First of all, I haven't thought that far. This was a very big decision. I really have enjoyed and will continue to enjoy being a United States Senator. I like the fact that right this minute, my staff is taking calls on constituent services, whether it's Social Security or a veterans backlog. I like going into the Senate to try to mix it up, to advance an agenda, and bipartisan solutions so like we could get the Homeland Security funded. Right now, we've got Coast Guard people in the Chesapeake Bay trying to break the logjam of ice to get commerce through. I'm going to go back to this afternoon to try to break the logjam to get the legislation through. So 2 years from now, I'll probably be walking around here at the Daily Grind having a coffee and wondering how is Ben doing in his commute. But other than that, right now, I want to, like I said, I don't want to spend my time campaigning for me. I want to campaign for the people.
Thank you.
So that concludes the press, guys.
Thank you.